Can we have a roll call, please, Kishan?
Yes, Director Slater-Carter.
Present.
Director Roddick.
Here.
Here.
Director Clark.
Present.
Director Lohman.
Here.
Director Arbach, substituting for Director Penrose.
Here.
Chair Dye.
Here. And can you introduce the staff who are here at this meeting? Because I don't think we've been doing that, and I think that would be good to add.
Yes, we do have Gabe Aguilar from Operations. I see Gabe, you can lift your hand, Gabe. Just acknowledge, yes. And then we have Sonia. She's not on video, but Sonia is also an operator in treatment plant. And I believe we have Mary Martis from the consultant HDR who had bid for the RFP. And of course, we have Peter and Jesse from Maze Consultants.
And Jeremy?
Jeremy, of course, Jeremy and Tim.
And Tim? And Tim?
Hey.
Yes.
And Tim?
And Tim.
Tim Costello?
And George?
Operations? Is that your title?
And George.
It's a ridiculous title. I don't know what it is.
What is your title?
It's
Supervisor of Treatment and Field Operations.
I think it's called Jack of all trades.
Yes.
Shark Petter.
And General Manager Kishan Prathavan.
And then we have Finance Officer George Evans.
And
yes.
Susie.
Susie. Where's Susie? She's not in.
She's not on screen, but I see her name.
Yeah, I see her. OQZ Sue.
there you go.
Who is taking the minutes for us tonight.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, excellent.
Shall we do the consent agenda first, Kishan, or did you want to go
Yes.
right to 4C?
No, we can do the consent agenda and then go for the adjustment.
All right. For the
Public
consent
comment?
agenda.
Public comment.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
You're out of practice.
Yeah. Do we have any comments from the general public for items not on the agenda? Oops. Hearing none, I will try to turn a little. I will move on to the agenda. And first item is the consent calendar. We are approving the minutes for March 8th, disbursements for March 22nd, and the monthly revenue and expense report for this period. Can I have a motion?
So move.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Right, is there any further discussion on this?
I have my once a month comment on the on the aging report, which still shows that GCSD has owed $28,000 for over 120 days, and our accounting system still through, and we'd like to see it fixed.
Yes, I believe Maze Consulting, along with our finance officer, George, are already in touch with Delia, and they are, I think emails are going back and forth, and they are clarifying it. So it's in the process of getting fixed.
Good. Delia's out of the office this week, but still good.
I agree with Matthew that this has been lingering for a long time and it would be good to get this resolved.
Yes.
I think you guys should just pay up and quit fighting this and let's move on.
I agree, Rick.
Why should we pay for something we don't own? At least that's our position.
Have you looked at how long you guys have owed money?
All right. Seriously, could we have a roll call on the consent agenda, please, unless there's further comments? No further comments? Can we have a roll call, please?
Director Slater-Carter,
Yes.
Director Roddick,
Yes.
Director Clark,
Aye.
Director Lohman,
Yes.
Director Arbach,
Yes.
Chair Dye.
Moving on to regular business, it's been requested that we take item 4C, the financial report first, because so that our good friends from Maze Consulting don't have to wait while we go through the other items. Does anyone have any objection to that adjustment to the agenda?
Nope.
All right, so let's move on to item 4C, review and discuss the financial report for fiscal year 2019 to 20. Kishan?
Yes, so in the last board meeting, we had the audit for 1920, which was presented to the board, and we had the auditor here. A number of questions were asked. This report is just a compilation of budget versus actual, which has been compiled by Maze. and attached in your packet. Maze is here to answer any questions. We've had discussions of this with the finance committee in the past and a few weeks back, and we thought it would be apt to bring it to the board before we just file the report. So Peter and Jesse are here to answer any questions, and of course, George and myself are there from Sam too. Any questions, or Peter's there? Or,
present this and share screen, or?
Peter, were you planning on doing a presentation, Peter? Yeah, you can share the screen.
No, in terms of presentation, the agenda packet was the item that told the story. There was no additional PowerPoint on top of what we had. I can share my screen to present the agenda packet and kind of walk through it. If that would be okay.
Sure.
Okay.
Fine.
I think that's nice because the public doesn't always get the agenda packet, and when they're watching on Zoom, it's useful for them to know what's going on.
Perfect.
Okay. Okay. So here we are. Okay. So as I've discussed with members of the committee in the past, we've gone through our audit. We received an unqualified opinion or unmodified opinion, which is wonderful. So we know that through the audit process, the auditors have verified that our numbers are good and that they are fairly representative. So the next part of it is we don't have a statement within our financial statements, which is a budget versus actual. Some agencies do, we do not. It could be something that we change going forward, but I believe that the real value of the audit is to now go by and compare it with something. So the most important thing is, I believe, the budget. When we go through the budget process, we also compare with prior year's actuals as well. But these reports are possibly changing, but you said whatever is going to provide the most value to the board and the committee is what we're aiming for. So a comparison with the budget is what we've prepared, knowing that these numbers have been audited and approved by the auditors. So as I scroll down, what we have here, and I said if it's small on your screen, I apologize. I don't know if I can actually make it bigger on mine. Sorry about that. I'm looking through the web browser. Income-wise, we pretty much hit it right on. We budget for it and we collect on a monthly basis. So the budget is spread over 12 months and the collections are made monthly. Okay, so O&M, right on. Capital contributions, right on. Capital assessments, the collections were a little bit high, but not only by 1%, so not enough to really warrant discussion. On the expenditure side, we have our major variances coming under the lab. That was under budget. I'm sorry. Yes, sorry, we were under budget, and mainly because of our professional miscellaneous services were not quite as high as we had expected them to be. That was probably the major variance line item. Admin, this was one of the larger over budget items. The main reason here was the GASB 68 calculation. So when we go through the GASB, so we go through the audit process, the actuary comes in and they look at our last year's liability, and through their tests, they provide us the current year liability. That difference needs to go through the statement of activities in some way, shape, or form. And so we typically hit a payroll item, and in this case, it was in the admin code, the admin lineup, and so that represented $213,000, and it's a combination of factors. It's the expected life range of folks as well as market conditions. We are part of a CalPERS cost sharing plan, so we have limited to no control over what those investments are and how they perform. During this time period, this was 7/1/2019 through 6/30/2020. At the end of that year was pandemic time. And so at that time period, a lot of these investments had really taken a hit that hadn't rebounded yet until Q3, Q4 of the calendar year. So that captures what I believe to be a good chunk of why that number is as large as it is, to make up that difference in liability between prior year and current year. The other big...
So can we expect potentially an improvement in that, a reverse of that next year?
I would say tentatively, I would expect that. If we didn't, I would be... How do you put this? Because you guys said this isn't our own plan. We don't have our own account within. Well, we have our own account, but we don't have our own pool of funds within CalPERS, which we can go back and say, hey, make this change, make this change, make this change. We're part of a group of agencies, smaller agencies, in which we're just all pulled together. So would I expect it to go up? Yes. Would I bank on it? No. Not knowing the history of CalPERS, I would not. But you know, like I said, I would expect it to, seeing what other agencies' returns are looking like in, as I said, Q3, Q4 of the calendar year and going forward, it's looking positive. So I would hope that that would be the case.
Okay, thanks.
Because it does go the other way, though. So the other big piece here is infrastructure, and we've discussed this within our finance team as well as the finance committee. It's the way that this item is budgeted. We budget for capital projects as a cash flow expenditure hitting the statement of activities. In reality, though, that's the case. We have real outflow of cash, but at the end of the year, we capitalize all these expenditures, so they remove themselves from the statement of activities, which is what we're looking at here, the P&L, in other words. Those expenditures move over to the balance sheet. So we're going to show this major variation year in, year out, as long as we budget in this fashion. So because of that, we've created a separate worksheet which shows the $1.421 million of capital improvements which were captured last fiscal year. And like I said, we've gone through this list, going through it during now this being budget time. We realize though that a number of these not project related projects are actually project related, and they will go to a certain asset class within our internal worksheets. I'm sorry, I don't know if you guys are getting feedback on yours. I am on my headpiece.
Yes.
Sorry.
Could everybody try muting except Peter, and let's see if it goes away? Peter, now we can't hear you. Did you mute yourself? You're not shown as muted, but we can't hear you. Peter, we can't hear you.
Hello? Now?
There you are.
Oh. Well, I waited to the very end of the presentation to say something. So, but this is really what I said. It's the comparison. This page up here, I believe, does the best job of capturing. You said we go through this budget process in this time. So February, March, April of the year before, and then it's a whole year and a half before we actually look at it and say, okay, well, how do we perform? How do we shake out? Because oftentimes when we go through the fiscal year, we're kind of looking at it on a cash basis of capturing the operations. When we capture that fiscal year end close, we're pulling in all the revenues and all the expenses, and that may make a significant difference as opposed to the monthly financials. So I said, I think this process is very important just to kind of see, nobody has that crystal ball. Nobody knows how this is all going to shake out. But I mean, said when they were going through the budget process for this current fiscal year, it was during COVID. So how was that? And now we're seeing how it's all going to shake out. But once again, like I said, I think it's just a lot of value to be able to compare our audit to some type of projection that we performed early on. So that's what we have.
We're going to look at this more in the finance committee so that we understand this, correct?
I believe Greg has a question.
All right, Greg.
I don't have a question, but I want to repeat something that Debbie Ruddock brought up at the last meeting that I think is worth exploration in the Finance Committee and in the future, and I'll be glad to assist with that. She was talking about having separate capital accounts from basic income and revenue accounts, and I think there's merit in that suggestion. I'd be glad to talk later at some other forum about why I think that's a good idea and what would be entailed. I think it would remove some of the confusion that we have in these discussions.
Right, thank you very much.
That's right.
I'm looking forward to the discussion at the Finance Committee of all aspects of this whole situation in terms of infrastructure and capitalization and so forth. So anything further on this topic? Anyone have questions for Peter? Are you finished, Peter?
Yes.
Okay, do we have any more questions? Catherine?
It's my recollection that some of the accounting details are covered in the JPA, and we need to make sure that we are not in conflict with what is required in the JPA.
Of course. Makes sense.
Yep.
Thank you. Any other comments? Matthew?
Going back to CalPERS, am I muted?
No?
No.
We can hear you.
We can hear you.
My screen says I'm muted still. About the CalPERS, this is just for my own education, not because I have no idea how CalPERS operates, but it says the expense from CalPERS cannot be budgeted as the data needed to record the annual pension entries is maintained by CalPERS. So that means Sam has it, an account or whatever they call it, and you don't have access to it? Or why? I don't understand why those kind of numbers would not be available.
Let me clarify this piece. Okay, so for SAM, we operate on the pay-as-you-go. So on an annual basis, CalPERS provides their report stating this is our cost for participation for this year by employee, by type. And so we pay that as our ongoing expenses toward CalPERS, toward our long-term pension liability. What GASB 68 said is that we as an agency had to quantify what was our respective liability, and so by that, the actuary had to go through this calculation, and because of this is actually performed by CalPERS themselves. Because I said we do not have our own separate plans, so these figures are provided to us by CalPERS' auditors. And they say, okay, this is your employee structure, and this is your liability for the year for the measurement date, which is actually last year. But we're actually paying the liability for this current year. So it's really a look back at the previous year, but our monthly payments to CalPERS are for the our current liability.
And we're going to look at this further as well.
But you can't know exactly what those payments are going to be until, when does CalPERS give you this information?
CalPERS has this information usually available around the fall of the end of the fiscal year. So I said we've been paying based on the 2021 actuarial report provided by CalPERS. What the GASB 68 is actually a separate report. It's a GASB 68 specific report, which says this is just your liability that has to get booked to your balance sheet, as opposed to our ongoing, ever-present, and ever-growing liability. This is as of a moment in time based on their figures.
Do they operate in the same fiscal year, or is there a fiscal year over at end of September?
Same fiscal year. But I said there's no way to make this. So actually, when we're doing this audit, we're actually looking at the measurement date of fiscal year 18-19. So they're looking at the previous year. So actually, now that I say that, yeah, this may not get any better, actually, because I said the new measurement date is going to be looking at the period ending June 30, 2020.
Well, there are issues about pensions, and we're going to have further look at this, right?
Absolutely, yes. This is being looked at. So for Sam, we have it's a 2-item. We have pension and we also have OPEB, both of which are carrying liabilities, and the discussion of funding is warranted. With the CalPERS part of it, it's a little bit more difficult because, as I said, we are a part of a cost sharing plan. So if we've said as an agency and the member agency all got together and say, you know what, we're going to fund this thing $2 million. Okay, we give that money to a CalPERS. The next statement, it's a bad month. That money is gone. I don't know how we can make that call based on being in a cost sharing plan. What the current guidance is to set up a separate plan, which is not with CalPERS but with a separate agency, in which monies are held for the purpose of fulfilling pension obligations, but not actually giving the money to CalPERS. Just because I said it's a lot of money over there that if it's gone, well, we don't get it back.
Okay, this seems like a complicated topic that isn't really on the agenda, and we are planning to have this as an agenda item in the near future, so we can talk about this for our upcoming budget and try to make sense of all of this and what is the best path forward for us so we don't get surprises. Is that correct, Kishan?
Yeah, actually, what we are planning on is a workshop. We're going to have a finance workshop so that we could explain this better and then go into more details of the finance jargon, which is normally rattled off, and the audit reports and all that. So we are planning on having that very soon.
And nothing tonight in looking at this will be changed by our review of this. This is a done deal that we're looking at, correct?
Correct. It's literally an extension of the audit results. It's just compiling and presenting it.
Does anyone else have more questions on this part? And then Peter, I don't know that you're done. We looked at one page. There's another page to show us, correct? But that's one of the key things to call out here is this, the GASB issue.
Correct. It's a hidden. It gets buried because of the presentation, but when we look at it in a budget form with all the accounts, it sticks out like a sore thumb. So the other page was really just the capital expenditures. It said we capitalized $1.421 million of projects in the current year, and I said this 1421 figure here. I said if we were to combine that with our budget here of 2.485 million, yes, we were under by about $1 million. And a big part of that is timing. So, but I said, it's a glaring oddity on this view because, like I said, because of capitalizing our projects to get into GAAP basis.
Are there other questions for Peter? All right, the action on this is just review and discuss. Is there anything further we need to do in this item? Other than thank Peter and Jesse for all, and George for all their hard work on getting this audit completed.
Yep, just receive and
let us do that. Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Jesse. Thank you, George, for all the hard work you've done. And we look forward to some workshops where we go into some of these issues that have come up from the past audit and how they impact our current situation.
You guys are all very welcome. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Good night.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Okay, going back to item 4A, authorize general manager to enter a contract for wastewater treatment capacity and treatment process review study. Kishan, speak to that.
Yes. Just to give an indication as to how this RFP process started, we started having issues with the plant, and the plant upsets started happening in the month of October. We had high BODs, high influent BODs, which led to high effluent BODs, and we had a couple of violations in BODs in the month of November and December, and that really got us to initiate this RFP. We brought it up to the board, and the board authorized us to go ahead and send out an RFP. That was on February 8th. The RFP was approved for distribution. We sent it out to 5 engineering firms, 5 selected engineering firms whom we thought would best qualify for this purpose. And they were well noted in this field of wastewater treatment. And we sent it out to 5 firms, and of which 3 of them responded. 3 firms participated in a mandatory pre-bid meeting, which was held. Representatives came in from all the 3 firms. We gave them a tour of the plant, and I believe we had exhaustive discussions, probably about 2 to 3 hours. Took them around the plant and had discussions. And then questions were also raised by the firms and put together as an amendment and sent it out to all the 3 firms. And then we received the bid documents on, what was the date? Sorry. February 9th, we sent out the RFP, and I believe we got it in March. And so once we received the proposals from the 3 firms, 3 engineering firms, the process of evaluation started. We sent it out to the 3 member agencies who sent it to their engineers. Half Moon Bay and Montera sent it out to their engineers, while GCSD was evaluated by the manager himself. And of course, Sam, general manager, was also involved in the evaluation. So we compiled all these evaluations, and then we found out that 2 firms, Brown and Caldwell and HDR, were pretty close, and they've got tremendous experience in the Bay Area. We all know that they've got highly qualified individuals on the resume. You must have seen that in the packet. They've handled equally good projects. But when we got down to the scores, they were pretty close. I would say difference of about 7 points. 178 was HDR, and I believe 185 was Brown and Caldwell. So this was the process followed, and then pretty much both the firms were following the same scope of work, the way they would conduct the work. Liaison with, meet with SAM staff, collect historical data, then put into a model, find out what the model gives, and then give the recommendations, and then work towards it. Pretty much the same, but based on that, the points which came out from the evaluators, since Brown and Caldwell was the highest, staff recommended Brown and Caldwell, and staff is here to answer any questions. Before that, we also see that there's a public comment by Greg Diegas, so we can either read out the public comment or the chair could allow him to speak. You're muted, Chair Dye.
Sorry. Well, let's see if there's board members who want to speak, and then we'll go to Greg. Anyone from the board who has questions or? All right. Well, seeing none, I will ask Greg to go ahead and maybe summarize your comments, or?
Well, it's hard to summarize the comments. As Kishan said, the 2 firms were close. But I have a number of detailed questions, if I could ask them one at a time and get the staff to answer them. Is that okay, Barb?
Sure.
So, you had 2 people on the HDR team that used to work at SAM in some capacity. I mean, I don't know these fellows. And they were on the HDR team. And normally, I was a consultant in different contexts, for part of my career. Normally, having 2 people who are very familiar with the client is an asset. So I'm wondering why they didn't score a little higher. I mean, can you comment on if there's something about those 2 guys that you didn't think they would be valuable? I mean, normally I would allow the consulting firm to come up to speed quicker and so forth.
It's kind of difficult to answer your question, Greg, because it's based on the evaluations given by 3 different individuals working with three engineers working with member agencies. So everything has been consolidated and put together. So it's kind of difficult to answer the question. I do have experience working with one of the individuals, but not with the second individual.
And I'm not sure that
Who was
of individuals is really appropriate.
Thank you,
well,
Barbara.
they're consulting assets is my question. They're going to be on the team. Did you check with references on these people? Like, did you ask Dan Childs if he knew the two HDR people because he was at Silicon Valley Water while they were working there, et cetera?
We did not. I did not ask Dan Child, but I fully was confident that the engineering firms who evaluated it, the engineers who evaluated it, had experience working with all these firms because they've been in this wastewater industry for so many years.
Okay, who were the selection committee that prepared these rankings?
From Half Moon Bay and from Montana and from GCSD and from SAM.
GCSD didn't comment, right?
Yes,
GSD
they did.
commented, but they didn't score.
Okay. What about that point I found where it didn't look like the scope was the same, where HDR was willing to provide a suggested potential operational improvement, whereas with Brown and Caldwell, they listed task 6 as extra cost.
The scope was identical. It was clearly listed out in the RFP, and the optional scope, which Brown and Caldwell had indicated, is actually not completely addressed in either of the other two engineering firms. So I wouldn't say that each scope is different, but the approach is almost the same. Each of them goes through the same process of collecting data and then going through the model, and then coming out with optimum solutions.
All right. Well, I'm not sure these. Yeah.
I
Okay.
think we need to move on.
I mean, clearly, staff has done an analysis. And it seems as if the agency managers all weighed in and felt that any of the three agencies would be acceptable and prefer the two. And our staff is recommending one of them based on the analysis from the agency managers and from our SAM general manager, which seems like a reasonable way to make this decision. Are there board members who would like to comment on this?
No, I'm good.
I'm good with the decision that the agency managers and or engineers made and that the operations committee made.
Would someone like to make a motion then?
So moved.
Second.
Is there further discussion? Right. Could we have a roll call, please?
Director Slater-Carter,
Yes.
Director Radek,
Yes.
Director Clark,
All right.
Director Lohman,
Yes.
Director Radbach,
Yes.
Chair Dye.
Aye.
Motion passed.
Greg, we appreciate your questions and so forth. I think it would have been good to have them earlier in the process. So appreciate that.
Sure, Di, we're having trouble hearing you.
You're breaking up a bit, Barbara.
Yeah, those maybe get closer to the microphone.
All right. Well, I'm at my sister's house and we'll leave it. So,
She has a lovely garden.
well, that's Coastside wildflowers. So. All right, moving on to item 4B, amend the contract with Rutan and Tucker for legal services to increase the authorized amount by $25,000 for fiscal year 2021. Could we have some discussion? Staff reports, please. Tish?
Yes. So General Counsel Jeremy was appointed at the board meeting on April 27, 2020. At that point of time, we authorized the the general manager to enter into a contract with Ratan and Tucker LLP for providing services for $300,000 over 3 years, which means averages out to about $100,000 per year. We realized that by the end of February 2021 of this year, the bills approximated to almost 77,000, which works out about close to 10,000 per month, 9,600 per month. So taking it over 12 months would come to about 115,000. And General Counsel has been working on several other issues which are not actually thought of in the past when we entered into a contract with him in last year. We've got him involved in proposed legislation, certain litigation and associated discoveries. And he's been also assisting Sam on the 2040 committee. And with his expertise on environmental issues, he's been also playing a big role in giving us a lot of advice. So it was felt that he would probably be touching to about 125,000 this year instead of what was proposed as 100,000. And therefore, it was thought that we should bring it back to the board, bring it to the board and get due authorization for this year to exceed his amount by 25,000 for fiscal year 2021. And therefore, it has been brought to the board. Any questions?
Questions from the board?
I just want to thank Jeremy for willing to go above and beyond the call of duty on certain cases. I think the PFAS presentation was very important and timely, considering we're talking about looking forward to 2020. And we do need him for the discovery, of course, to protect Sam in this lawsuit. So I make the motion that we increase the contract for this year by 25,000.
Do we have a second for that motion?
Second.
Any further discussion?
I got a quick comment. As was mentioned, Jeremy's been working on the 2040 committee. I'm going to do a little report at the end during director's reports, and I'm envisioning that we may not be using Jeremy because of a new different style I want to propose. So I don't envision continuing work and billing on that committee. So, you know, once we get over this year's hump, it should level out, I would think, too. So.
Okay. Thank you, Director.
I think Jeremy's been done a good job as our attorney. And just because we've increased this doesn't mean that he has to spend it. But I also have found him very helpful in a number of matters. So it's good to have the increased flexibility to have his help with some legal matters as we go forward. So any further discussion of the motion? All right, can we have a roll call, please?
Director Slater Carter?
Aye.
Director Radek? Director Radek, you're muted.
She looks like she's working on it.
Aye.
Okay. Director Clark?
Aye.
Director Lohman?
Yes.
Director Arbach?
Yes.
Chair Dye?
Aye.
Motion passed.
Keep up the
Thank
good
you.
work, Jeremy.
Thank you, board members. I really enjoy working with you.
Okay, moving on.
And he has a good sense of humor, too.
Yes.
Well, you know, my kids don't think so. They find me completely not funny, which is wrong. But in the event, I digress.
You just made that. So, moving on to general manager's report.
Okay. The detailed report is in your packet, but I'd just like to mention that the wet weather storage expansion project is moving along very well and expected to complete by the end of April. You know, we've had some lost days because of the weather, but catching up, we've got all the tanks in place. The tanks have been connected to each other. We're going to do the hydro testing soon, and we're getting there. So I'm positive that we'll be able to complete it by end April.
I I've stopped by a number of times, and the archaeologist is always there on the spot checking things out. So, and the technical consultants who are there, the management consultants that you have are always there and are always paying attention. So it seems as if it's the supervision of the project is also going really well.
Yeah, thank you very much. And also we've had a couple of spot inspections by the county to make sure that we are in compliance with their requirements. And I must say that the contractor has been doing very well, and he's literally got a lot of A's, which many of us wouldn't have even seen in our report cards. Okay.
All right. Anything further in the manager's report?
I'd like to add a thank you to Keishan. We've gotten some detailed weekly reports recently, and I have found them extremely helpful. Thank you very much, Keishan, for taking the time and the effort to do that spreadsheet for us.
Thank you very much. And I must thank my staff who's been giving me all this information to put together the report.
Then thank you, everyone.
Thank you, staff. Thank you, everyone. I have a question. As you know, I always look at the flow numbers in that page and the graph. First of all, let me note that Granada is up to 21.46% in February. Montara is at 22.81%, and Half Moon Bay is down a bit to 55.73%, which is interesting. But I also note that if you look at the graph, there was rain. There was a significant, more than like 3/4 of an inch of rain on February 11th, which did not result in any kind of increase in the flow into the facility. So I'm really interested in how the rain impacts the operations. And I'm just noting this now, but I just think it's odd that there was rain that had no impact, and then a much, much lower rain that had a much higher impact. So I'm interested. Where did Kishan go?
There he is. He's down there. I see him.
Yeah. I don't know what happened. I lost you guys.
Anyway, if you look at the graph on, I don't have the page number of the flows, it just seems kind of anomalous to me that there was a whole rainstorm that did not change the flows into the plant. And I'm just curious about rain and flows. So I'll just note that. Anyone else have any questions on the manager's report? Matthew, you're muted.
On the rain, what figure? Where's that figure come from for the daily rain? Is it at the plant?
We actually get the rainfall from 3 different locations. One is from the Montara website, or from the Montara site. They actually have a really nice weather station up there, so kudos to them for that. The other one is at the treatment facility. We have one there, and then the one in El Granada is off like Weather Bug or something like that.
That's at the Portola pump station?
No, it's not Portola pump station specifically. It's from the El Granada area, but is like from Weather Underground. So you can look at different sites. So Weather Underground in the area, and that's where that number comes from.
So the rain figure shown on the flow chart is all those averaged or added together?
The one on the flow chart is actually from the plant. That's at the plant specific. Yeah, that's the other. We do get rain data from the other agencies, but the one on the flow chart is specific from the plant location, because we have a NOAA weather station at the plant, and we also have a rooftop gauge at the plant.
So that might be some of an answer, Barbara, because we've had a series of what seem unusual here, thunder showers where it rained like crazy in one end of El Granada and not at all at the other. And so same thing could have happened at the the treatment tank got some heavy rain, and it shows up on that chart, but it didn't happen in northern districts or maybe in most of Half Moon Bay either.
You're correct on that. You're pretty much spot on. There are definitely some anomalies on the rainfall events and where they tend to fall heavier at. Also, the areas like in Montera and El Granada, usually you see when there's a rain event, you might see flows elevated there a little bit sooner than in Half Moon Bay. Half Moon Bay, a lot of times it seems like once you get groundwater saturation up, then their flows tend to show a little bit sooner when there is a rainfall event.
Yeah. Hey, Barbara. In Montera, whenever it rains, we tell people to stop flushing. So,
thank you for that. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I've also been told, and if you look at our website, you will see that we are finally close to even with last year. And last year we had about half of normal rainfall, slightly over half. I'm hoping this year we will get up to or maybe even exceed half a little bit. This is beginning to look like the infamous California drought. And so when the ground is dry, the water just stays there. It doesn't get into the system nearly as much as when the ground is saturated. And it's
depending on the topography. Yes, you are
Correct.
correct. Yeah.
So it's just there's so many variables. Doesn't the airport have a weather station too anymore, or did they stop doing that?
No, they have a weather station also.
Because I know when I've been looking at comparing them, it's interesting to see somewhere on the internet one year I found flow rings and averages, and I was surprised to see the differences based on the topography. And as I recall, Half Moon Bay actually got more rain than Montera on average.
All right, thank you.
I don't know.
Anything further on the general manager's report? All right, moving on to attorney's report.
Yes. Yeah, okay, I'm off mute. Good. Just wanted to just briefly cover one of the things I've been asked to take a look at was the 2 bond bills. I know some of the directors have been active on that as well as Kishan. I made my goal, since we really haven't identified what project we want to try to get funded, that maybe is something to think about. As Chair Dye and I had a chance to talk about that earlier today. Kind of like before you go out and look for money, kind of think about, well, if we get money, what do we want to do with it, right? What's it really for? What's our vision for it? And so that's, I think we have to maybe think about that a little bit. Maybe you guys know. But so what I tried to do, because we haven't really identified a specific project, I tried to just make sure that the definitions and some of the grant criteria were sufficiently broad to capture wastewater modernization, essentially with a tie to climate change, because we are at risk of sea level rise for this plant. And so that was the overall goal. So I sent my comments to Chair Dye, and she has those. And then one of the things that I think maybe everyone can think about is, okay, so if there are things we want, what's the mechanism to get that word out? And so I think Chair Dye has perhaps given some thought to that. But I just want to let the board know I'd gone over that, and there are some potential opportunities. There's a lot of folks with their hands out asking for money. I don't know if these bonds are going to pass or not, but it's interesting. You can tell the people who are really very sophisticated, because look at LA County. I mean, those folks are, they're all over the place in this thing. And so anyway, and then I was just going to talk about the COVID issue. One issue that I just saw briefed, and I figured I'd share with the board, and this may be a little bit something Christopher's looked at as well, is the issue of, and this may not be an issue at SAM, where employees may be voluntarily getting the vaccination, but the state of California has taken the position that public agencies can mandate that their employees get vaccinated. It's a controversial topic. But there have been some recent opinions on that to the extent that it becomes an issue in SAM in the future. And so if, you know, I guess really entertain any questions on that, but I just want to let folks know, I know that issue had come up before, so I wanted to raise it and just let you know that there has been some guidance from the state on that. So I think that's my attorney's report for now. Thank you.
Thank you. It was my understanding that our staff was finally was able to get vaccinated, that they're certainly essential workers. What is the status of that, Kishan?
Yeah, they are. Staff are eligible, so they are. Some of them have got vaccinated. Some of them are waiting for appointments to open up. So they are working on it.
Great.
Thank you, staff.
Yes, we're delighted that they're getting protected because they do important work. Any questions here? Anything further? All right, moving on to director's reports. Director Lohman, did you want to give a report?
Yeah, I want to give sort of an update and some questions on the 2040 committee. First of all, 3 of the directors here, or semi not here, directors Penrose, Slater Carter, and I are attending this water reuse thing, which goes on and on and on and on. The big thing on that is there's going to be at least 50 to 60 white papers are coming out of this, all of which we will get a hold of and bring to SAM. So that's the good news. A lot of the articles and discussions are all about public acceptance of recycled water, and that's been rehashed like about 1 million times, and everything they say is fine. There's a lot of stuff on operator training and finding operators and convincing them that working in sanitary plants is a great job and all of those sorts of things. To me, it's a little light on what we do with some of the nasty products that come out of recycling and stuff like that, like whatever's called the brine or the sludge. I've set up about 10 contacts to try to get more info on the bad part of recycling and what you do with that. But one of the big discussions was the federal government is creating billions and billions of dollars to be used on projects like this. California, as Jeremy said, billions of dollars are going to come out to provide these projects. All that money will go to groups that submit plans. Our problem is we need to get some plans and some agreements going. I'm hoping we don't wait to the end of the lawsuit to have that decided first, because the next meeting isn't until July. And it's unrealistic, I would think, to get any results back in the next year or so. So if we wait till...
What meeting is not till July? I'm sorry. What meeting is not till July?
All the attorneys to get together to decide about court dates is in July.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I just
and then they'll set a court date, hopefully, and then something else will happen. But everybody said that's a long time down the road. I think if we wait that long, we're not going to get any money because LA and all the biggies who are doing this are going to do it. I see a couple ways to get going. Just the three who are on the committee, plus Jeremy and a little, input from Kishan. By ourselves, we can't decide anything. You don't want me to design it. You probably don't want the committee to design it. So I see 2 ways to get input. One, we go ahead and agendize this and have a big discussion or even a special meeting, because it's going to run a while. Or I've also asked, and this is a possibility, if each of the boards can schedule this for a meeting and get together all the facts they want, which is if you could design a system to be just what you want, what is that? And designing recycled water systems, what are the problems you envision? How would you do success? And if each of the boards can gather information, then our committee can get together again and see if that's heading toward a discussion. But we may need to have a special meeting. And, with the engineers and the GMs and all that stuff we do, it might be a good thing anyway to have the individual boards get with their engineers and GMs and come up with not necessarily a final solution, but what do you want to do? And then we can get together and collate that information and see where that's heading us. But my point is we got to move, or we're going to pay for the whole thing ourselves. So if we want to agendize it, or if the Montera's already had a meeting, we've got a lot of our stuff going already, but I'd like to get everybody's input, obviously. And I think the best way to do it is for each individual board to have a meeting and come up with some stuff, then get together, we can collate it, or we can just do it all together in I'd probably recommend a special meeting at this point, because there's a lot of stuff to talk about. So it's my report.
Thank you. Director Riddick.
Yeah, I think there's an easier approach. I mean, the county looked at sea level rise impacts to infrastructure on the bay and the coast. So we have an initial sort of superficial look at potential sea level rise issues with the SAM plant. Low hanging fruit would be to issue an RFP to have somebody look at that much more closely and, take it to another level. Look at the issues in detail, like the threats from rising groundwater to the electrical system, right? And what are the solutions? Like, is it sort of a berm at the mouth of the estuary? What are we looking at? So I think the first order of business is, what are the threats from sea level rise, and taking a much more detailed look in development of options. It might be that, this isn't going to be cost effective. You need to do a distributed system, or you need, a location close to Highway 1 or on the other side of Highway 1. But, we already have sort of a report. Why not just take it to the next level, throw $50,000 at a much more detailed analysis that would also include the evaluation of, alternatives, right? So rather than just reaching all over the place for all kind, recycled water, whatever, why not just start and take a closer look based on something we already have? So that would be a recommendation that I'd like to see us consider.
Director Slater-Carter.
Thank you. I think this maybe should be an agenda item so we can have a longer discussion about it, but I will say there are long-term and short-term hazards and risks. Sea level rise is not the only one, and I think we should make an assessment of all of the ones that are around here and that affect various parts of the system. The plant is not the only part of the system. There's the system extends all the way up to Montera through Grenada, and there's lots of different geologic hazards and problems and issues. So I'd like to see this as an agenda item. One of the things that came up at the recycled water conference and is affecting SAM right now, we voted on working on a solution for it tonight is source control and BODs. One of the things that was mentioned both for recycled water and for sewer plants is making sure that you have good, strong source control ordinance so that you aren't asking your ratepayers to pay for a business that's dumping stuff that affects the plant negatively into the system, and then the plant has to pay for it. There are lots of different source control solutions and ordinances there, and so I would like to have a discussion on this, maybe on a future agenda, my initial thought is each agency, because the source of the problems is coming from within each agency, needs to look at its own ordinance and decide how it wants to handle it in light of modern times. I know I've heard and read that somebody said about the BOD problem at the plant, well, we haven't had that problem in 20 years, so why do we need to do anything about it? Things are changed, processes are changed, manufacturing is changed, all kinds of things are changing. And I think it's important for Sam to account for that and be able to deal with it. Thank you.
I just, let me change my suggestion just a tweak based on what Catherine said. Why don't we have an agenda item at the next meeting, not to create a solution or solve the problem, but just to initiate our plan, what we're going to do, kind of like Director Ruddick said. Let's just have a meeting and decide which way we want to go. Do we want to hire consultants? Do we know what the problems are? Let's just discuss that part at the next meeting. That shouldn't take forever.
Well, and I think, first of all, we need to define the problem.
Well, I think that's what he's saying that we should do at the next meeting. I would support that. I think
that's task number one.
That's a good piece to look at. And yeah, anyone else have comments on this? I think we're in general agreement from what I'm hearing that we would like an agenda item to talk about next steps in this area. I will say that today I sat in on the multi-jurisdictional local hazard mitigation plan meeting, which was really boring. Sorry, they were talking, they went through their principles and their objectives, different whole set of principles, then a whole set of objectives, and then a whole set of goals. But it is a lot of players in this whole, in the county. And evidently the idea is to sort of position all of these entities in the county to receive funding when funding becomes available. So it seems like we were able to get in at the last minute. I understand that, Sam did not sign up because they felt they could do it through Half Moon Bay somehow, but I
specifically and at the meeting, and Sam being a joint powers doesn't count.
They're not a special district. Okay.
They can't get in. So,
well, anyway,
we don't want them.
I think it's a lot of high-powered people. At this point, it was mostly consultants talking process and a lot of detail. But I think that does, again, say it goes along with what Jeremy was saying. It goes along with what Catherine and Deborah are saying, which is that we need to start thinking about what is the problem that we're trying to solve. So can we agree as a board that we'd like to have this as an agenda item for our next meeting?
Yes.
Anyone have any objection to that? All right, sounds good. Let's move on. Anything further there? Okay. Topics for future board consideration.
You've already added one.
Yes.
Okay. All right, you can come in, Brendan.
Something that I asked for was a discussion about source control, or pollutant source control, if each district wants to handle it, maybe we can just do a report on that. I suggest we each ask our Public Works Director, General Manager.
Okay. Anything else? All right, moving on to anything further for this meeting? Any members of the public who want to say anything before we go into closed session? All right, I guess we are finished and we will go into closed session. Good night.
Okay, thank you.
Have a pleasant tomorrow.
Yep. Thank you all for coming for the meeting.
Thank you, staff, for being there. Thank you, Gabriel, and was it Sue?
Sonia,
and
Tim.
of course, Tim.
And
Susie.
And Susie.
Michelle.
And Susie, and of course, Michelle.
Yep, Susie and George.
Yep, Susie.
Michelle's still on here, so I guess we gotta.
And PCTV is still on here.
I'll get off.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Good night, all.